Hello, I'm Elgato and welcome back to episode 382 of my Minecraft Xbox Update Adventures Let's Play. This is the Let's Play where I'm playing for the various updates that have come out for Minecraft on the Xbox and now Bedrock editions, building stuff, killing stuff, and of course, destroying stuff. And in today's episode, I'm actually going to be working on something which is related to the destruction, because today I wanted to work on the bamboo farm to do a really important but kind of chill build and talk a little bit about something which has been on my mind a lot this past week. If you don't know, I was on something that I actually called, myself a vacation in the past week. A lot of people say that, like, oh, you must go on vacation, like, what, 20 times a year? But a lot of times I'm traveling for various videos or, like, conferences or this or that. But, last week, I spent a lot of my time in America on a pretty fun trip to a bunch of different places. Maybe you know something about it. But basically, while I was on that trip, I was thinking a lot about, I guess, the purposes of relaxation and stuff like that. And it was something that I thought was maybe interesting, so I'm going to be sharing it with you. And also, again, working on this kind of big, kind of important, bamboo farm. Although, it's not important right now, but it will be more important after they add in, because they're going to be adding, of course, in the next update, the compost bins. Having the ability to compost this will give me some serious use for this, as well as smelting. So, yeah, the bamboo farm seems pointless now, and it honestly was designed to be pointless, but it might have a use after the next update. However, first of all, I wanted to talk about the thing that's been, really... I guess, like, let's call it eating away at me, but, like, the good version of that. You know when you're obsessed with something, but it's okay to be obsessed with it? Like, being obsessed with grass, not okay, right? Unless you're, like, a horticulturalist and you farm for a living. Being obsessed with, improving yourself, fitness, that's probably an okay thing. Being obsessed with your schoolwork, that's fine, I guess, while you're at school at least. But, the point is, there are some things it's okay to be obsessed with, and I believe this is one of those things, because it's something important that I think everyone has to at least figure out some amount of in their life, and that is how to relax. Because I feel like a lot of people don't necessarily do it as efficiently, effectively as perhaps you could. And I know that sounds ridiculous for me to say right now, that people do not relax hard enough, people do not relax well enough, but I think that's my actual opinion. So again, you can listen to this, and if at the end you think I'm literally insane, do point that out, but please do hear out my argument here, because I think when most people sit down and try to, enjoy themselves, there's always something on their mind, there's always something they're doing, and they go through something that's very stressful. At least to me, when I do what most people do when they, let's say finish a day of work or finish a day of that, I get, like, immensely, not stressed out, but I don't feel gratified. I don't feel like I've actually, cancelled out some of the, bad things that have just happened, and I think that's kind of interesting that, like, the process that for a lot of people is meant to be this really enjoyable one, to me is really the exact opposite. Like, here's a good example of this. I don't socially recharge by, talking to people. I don't recharge in general by talking to people. That's not something that, like, recovers me. So when people have this thing where it's like, oh yeah, as soon as I have a moment of free time, I'm right in, the Discord call, or I'm right in, insert this thing here. And it's like, well, I mean, if you're always talking to people, you don't have a moment to yourself of, like, free time for your brain to just, chill and be what it wants to be. And although there's reasons for that, it's still one of those things that's mildly interesting to me, that, like, you gotta give your brain some amount of time, right? Like, it needs to have, it's just a thing in my head that's just a well-known thing, that you should give your, you should have some off time. And this is, so that my point with all of this is that I wanted to talk about how to relax a little bit better, and I think the best way to do so is not to do something that you think is just relaxing by itself, but it's to really just dive into something and have no goals. Finish everything that you wanted to get done in a day, and then at the end of it, have some time where it's like, hey, there's no goals here, just do whatever you want to do. And, like, give yourself the loosest plan, because there's two problems I feel like people have. One is to just go into something, also I need some more iron to make more of these rails, which I guess I don't have. But there's two problems that a lot of people run into. One is that, you go in and you're like, okay, so, I'm coming up with, like, 15 different things you want to do at any given moment. And it's like, well, if you do that, then you're not really relaxing, are you? You're just kind of, like, going into a different mode of working on something else entirely. And the other issue that I often see is when people, instead of properly relaxing, they seem to go instead into this kind of mode of, like, well, also, can you make this go around corners? I don't think you can. So we'll just have that connected to the same redstone torch. But, I see a lot of people who, when they go into their little relaxation bubble, what they actually end up doing is they start, working on things that are just, not even enjoyable. It's just like, well, your brain feels compelled to work, and even though you know you need to relax, you don't. And, yeah, my point of all of this is I wanted to say that people, when you are having some off time, I think it's important to work out what actually counts as off time for you, and to do that. If you spend all day at in your work or school, your whatever else here, thinking that like, oh, I really want to do insert big thing here, then what you need to do when you get home is you need to do some of that insert big thing here. Not to get there and be like, man, I'm just so tired, I can't do anything. I'm gonna sit down, spend 30 minutes just like sat there, on my phone, and then I'm gonna, move over to being sat there on, like, I don't know, my PC, or just like sat there watching some TV. If you have like super unstructured and super, like you don't even know, you're just doing the thing in the moment. I think my way I put this is like, when people, one of the things that I'm really bad at this too, I'd like to point out, I'm not just criticizing the world, I'm criticizing myself, and hopefully some of it is true for you too. But like when you sit down and you're like, okay, so now my goal is, like to relax, I'm just going to do absolutely nothing. I don't think that's good. I think what most people do is life is getting harder and harder in many different ways at all the time, right? Like, that's just a thing I think most people would agree is true for them at most points in time. But even though life gets harder and requires more work, more effort, more everything from you, what a lot of people end up doing is just being like, well, that's so hard, so I just need to take the rest of my time off. And I think the opposite thing is true. I think people don't relax hard enough. I think when you take your time to do whatever you want to do, you need to take that like seriously. You need to be like, yep. So I'm gonna be. Also, I think we placed some stuff there. Yeah, that's right. You need to be like, okay, well, I'm gonna be spending the next time super relaxing. Like I worked so hard today. I need to super relax tonight, and that's why there's two things like I totally recommend. This is maybe some chill advice of Toy Cat, but first of all would be, okay, so when you actually, also this isn't doing anything, but when you sit down, to relax, you need to be like, okay, I'm going to be doing it, this, that. These are the things that I really, I dream about doing all day. Make sure you do them, and that way you'll dream about them less, or at least you'll dream about them in better ways and less resentful ways, as opposed to, you dream about them in more positive and less resentful ways. At least that's my take and experience on these things. But then as well as that, I would say the other thing that people don't do is just give themselves time for literally nothing. One of the bizarrities to me is that people never, I don't give myself time for this. I have to speak to myself on a non-stop basis and say, hey, take some time not to play games, not to, chill in your Minecraft world. There's so many things I do, like that are partially relaxing, but don't take time for those things. Take time to do nothing at all. Take time to literally just sit there and empty your mind. I think, so a lot of people call this meditating, and I really don't like meditating because it implies like either mildly religious, but like, not necessarily the common religion. Yeah, it's got links to Buddhism, but I mean meditating in the sense of like, hey, turn off your brain for just literally even 20 seconds, and you'll feel much, much better. One of the problems that comes when you're so busy all day and you're in that stressed moment of just non-stop is one of the big problems of this. It seems to be the fact that you're there and you don't take any real time to not do a thing. And I think the easiest thing to not do is to think about everything all the time. I think one of the big pieces of advice I have just right now that I really wanted to get out there is just spend 20, I say 20 seconds. Like, if you can do a minute, sure, go for a minute. But spend some amount of time today literally thinking about nothing. And every time I do this, literally, I do it like maybe, once a day. I'd like to schedule it in there, but again, it's literally for me something like 20, 30 seconds. But just turn off all thoughts. Like, you'll immediately, if you try to think about nothing, something will come up. It's like trying to sleep, in my opinion. But you need to, like, push that thought away. Like, no, we're not going to think about that, stupid brain. What we're going to be focusing on instead is nothing. We're just going to, again, push every thought out there. And if you do that for like 30 seconds, it's such a refreshing feeling. I think one of my, again, I think a lot of people agree that some of the things that I do, they come across as bizarre, I think, because it's like, I guess like most of the things I do in life are maybe different to the normal thing, because, I play Minecraft most of my days. That's what my quote-unquote work tends to be. And therefore you might say, well, I mean, therefore, like, how does that even count as like work, or how does that even count as relaxing? Because I said before, one of the most chill things to do, in my opinion, is to sit down with your Minecraft world and just do some of the really easy tasks. Like right here, just placing some chords. That's what I like to do. It's super relaxing. How does that even work that way? And the truth is once you turn off your brain for a bit, it's the best 30 seconds you can have in your day in terms of what it does for the rest. If you take that 30 seconds before spending 45 minutes, I don't know, watching a movie or something like that, you'll feel much better about it. One of the scary things is the brain has two modes, or like, you might disagree with this one, but hear me out. the brain has two main modes. There is the mode where you're just kind of like systematically sitting there, or like, you know, doing, you know, when you see, okay, here's a good example. When you, you know, like when you're really, really, you know, like hungry, your mouth salivates or something. That's something you do by default. But then there's the layer above from that, where you do something really quickly in response to something. So if you see some bright lights, you'll shut your eyes. Or if you, I don't know, like if you see something in front of you in a car while you're driving, you immediately hit the brakes, right? There's a few things like that you do in response immediately. It's not even a conscious decision, really. It's just out there. The more you think consciously about what you want to do with the time where you're just kind of like sitting there doing nothing. When you watch a movie, you're just like, you turn off your brain, right? If you are better at thinking about how you want to turn off your brain, when you do turn off your brain, it feels a lot better. And that's my point I wanted to raise here, because it's been something that's just been really, again, one of the things, whenever I do go on any trip, vacation, travel, or whatever, because one of the problems is like, oh yeah, well, I mean, you know, like how do you stop yourself from going on social media and, you know, trying to boost the this or the that? And most of it is the fact that I don't really see social media as being a thing that counts as, you know, like part of any business or anything. Like, you know, I don't make any money from Twitter or Instagram. Any of the things I do, it's there solely that you can follow and see what I'm up to. And I find it interesting to post like, oh yeah, I was in Vegas and I won some money. Isn't that kind of cool? But, you know, although a lot of people who do see it as that sort of thing, the best thing to do is to turn off your brain sometimes and to just be like, hey, we're just going to take some time to really work out why I want to be here. Because if you spend your whole life just doing everything on autopilot and then thinking how nice it'd be not to be, that sounds like a version of hell that you can very easily avoid by just, again, whenever you're going to sit down and just like, I don't know, it might be playing some games, it might be doing this, you know, think about, do you want to be doing that first? And if you do, that's great. And one of the best ways to know if you want to do something is just to simply, you know, ask yourself the very, very basic, very simple question of like, hey, you know, is this a thing I'd like to spend some time on? So yeah, I think in the modern world, everyone does everything super hard, super fast, and that's great. There's so many wonderful things about it. But everything, you know, you work harder, you know, like, you know, you get around faster, harder, all these sorts of things. You know, everyone's more efficient and healthy if they're eating, their exercise, everything else like that. But one of the things everyone isn't getting better at is relaxing. So my point here is relax harder, relax better, whatever that means for you. I think a lot of people, the reason I make videos like this, the way I do on my channel, where it's just like, let's talk and let's play some chill Minecraft, is because I like having this just like easy, chill series every Monday. It's a good time to do it. I often do it a few days in advance. I think it's Friday, as I called this, if you want full disclosure. But my point, I actually don't know the day today, because again, it's a chill day today. But if you just give yourself a whole day, again, lots of people have this thing where it's like, oh yeah, I'm just going to take a day off. But then in that day off, you're like, oh yeah, well, I have to do this errand that I pushed off till now. I have to do this errand. And by the time you're done, it's like, oh, I spent a day half doing errands and half like being stressed because of all the errands. It's like, well, then you've just wasted your day. So yeah, hopefully this advice is useful to someone out there. Maybe this is a unique problem to me, but like I have a real problem when I've like wasted time and not felt good at the end of it. I like every single time I have like, you know, I get myself to be like, look, everything's done. There's nothing that needs to be done this time. Just have a good time. If I end that and I don't feel good, if I watch a movie and the whole time I'm mentally stressed and I'm like, you know, let's work out, you know, the issues with, I don't know, insert, you know, friend here, or what's the deal with, you know, why did that girl break up with me 8 years ago, you know? You know, if you start to do something like that, then it's not really a chill time. And today, I wanted to give the advice of be chill more often. And also, because this is a Let's Play, we're going to be talking about what I've been up to this past week. I was in America. Maybe you guessed from the fact that I went on a whole rant about something I thought about while I was there. Because even while I'm like, you know, doing something, again, this is one of the few trips where it's like purely, let's have a good time, let's have a fun time, let's travel, let's do our stuff. Even though the trip was really about that, I still found myself facing what I would call the kind of issue of I wasn't quite. I was in the spot where I wasn't necessarily you know, like always perfectly relaxed. I was like, you know, okay, this was great. Well, how can we? You know, my brain was like, okay, so now think of the next, you know, fun video idea you think about. Because often when I'm abroad is when I'm just doing nothing, my brain thinks about some of the ideas that I really have loved on this channel. If you're curious about stuff like, I don't know, you know, the speed run of Minecraft, that was with the editor, but like still some of the ideas are like, oh, that'd be cool. Like trying to beat Minecraft no hunger. I was just thinking one day like, would that be possible? Actually, no, I think that's actually an example of my editor's idea, but you get the point of like loads of the weirdest ideas. I think the communist realm was literally just like, oh, I'll do this. I didn't even consult the editor. I was just like, hey, this is something I really want to do, and it became one of my most viewed videos. And I think maybe that's a fluke, maybe it's an example, but I think some of my best ideas and some of the most fun ideas, whether they do successful or not, whether they help me earn the living, which I do from YouTube, but some of the most successful things, regardless of all of that, have come from they've come from just like the chill time off. And that's why, as someone who's like very focused on how my brain comes up with ideas, because sometimes I can sit there and I'll have 20 amazing ideas for videos in 20 seconds, and sometimes people say like, oh, you have ideas, so you can't. Usually not, but sometimes I'll be there for a whole 2-day period, like, okay, what am I gonna do? I'll come up with ideas, but also chill, and then the whole 2 days go past. I'm stressed the whole time. I haven't come up with the ideas. I haven't come up with the, I haven't worked on any of the things. It's just like, oh, that was just purely wasted time then, was it? And the answer is yeah, it usually is just purely wasted time. Also, I'm gonna check if my minecart is still going round. I'm hoping it does not break, but I'm not seeing evidence that it's coming. Okay, it is. It's just a long little minecart track. So yeah, we're gonna be. I guess if we can find some iron, we'll finish up this track and make it so it actually goes around and collects all of this. Because again, now we have an actual reason to collect the bamboo. I'm a bit more excited to work on the farm, and again, we can use it as fuel too, I guess. That'll be kind of interesting by itself in some ways. But yeah. So with that said, I am also going to quickly mention, because Let's Play what I've been up to the past week. Went to America. Had some really good flights on the way out and in. If you don't know, this was a crazy, like it was literally, so it was business class with Delta, for what most people would pay for, the regular tickets, but it was in their like nicest cabin. It was a crazy nice flight, whereas like, the flight back literally felt like, 3 hours, even though it was 9. It meant I got to fly within the US for the first time, and I got to experience what like domestic US food is. And I understand now, one of the coolest things this week is I finally understand why, like the US comedian joke of like, so what's the deal with airplane food? Man, in America, even like it was literally, so again, because it was a business class ticket outside the US, because it was a mistake fare, they accidentally priced it too cheap, but long story on how this whole thing happened, but basically, because it was a mistake, because it was something, there's the rail we need. Because it was a mistake fare, I got to fly business. Because of that, I got to fly first class from the US. It was literally, first class food. The highest level of food you can get on an airline in America on like a 4-hour flight. You'd figure this would be like the stuff they're proud of, the stuff they want to really, impress people with. And it was the saddest looking meal I've ever ordered. I don't know if I put it on Twitter yet, but follow me at twitter.com/IBXToyCat if you want to maybe see it at least. But yeah, basically my point was just going to be like, okay, I love airplane food. It's one of my favorite things. If you see pictures, I often post like whenever I go on an airline, it's like, wow, that was amazing. Like some of my favorite dishes have been like even in economy, like with the airline food, because I like airline food. It's a good stuff. But when it comes to American airline food, my God, that is something you don't want to be eating. Pro tip: even if you are someone who like flies first class in America, maybe you fly once a year and you treat yourself because you figure, why not? On a once a year ticket, it's not actually too expensive to fly first class in America, as I understand it. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong stuff. But it's always like, oh yeah, it's only, like as a percent wise, it's like you pay 30% more and you can fly first class. And as pro tip, if you think like, oh, I'm gonna treat myself and do that, then I would still recommend don't eat the food on the plane. It's like it's monumentally bad, and that's interesting to me. Like again, I love airlines. I love seeing how they're different around the world, and that's one of the weirder differences to me in how airline food is in America versus literally anywhere else. Because even if you fly an American airline, usually like to an international country, as in a country that's not America. Not that America isn't an international country, but you get the point. It's good, but it wasn't good there. And there you go. That's a thing I learned this past week. Also, like I said before, I like reading the comments on Let's Plays. I think, generally speaking, the people who watch the Let's Plays are like the cooler portion of the subscriber base. That's been my opinion. Maybe it's a bad opinion. Maybe you don't like it. Maybe you think, hey, ToyCat, what's that all about? You're criticizing everyone else? Well, I mean, no. It's like, people who come to the videos because they're recommended, that's great. I like them just the same because they help support the channel just as much. And it's great. It's one of the reasons that, I can thrive on YouTube rather than just survive. Like the subscribers are like without non-subscribers, it wouldn't work, etc. I get that. But also, I care much more about subscribers because they're people who, like enjoy multiple videos, who want to watch a bunch of them. I thought that was a sheep on a spider there. I was genuinely terrified. But they're people who enjoy the videos and want to see more of them. And in a way, they're the people who want me to be successful more than people who accidentally watch my stuff. I'd much rather have people who want to watch me than who feel like it's by accident. That's why all the time, I try to make, adhere to some of the best standards I can, because I think that's something that's important in general. But yeah, as far as I like Let's Plays, I like people who watch it, and because last week I spoke about a health problem that wasn't a health problem. It was literally my brain imagined. Oh, I've got a whole stack of observers. I guess we're gonna use those. My brain literally imagined a problem with my teeth, like a really excruciating problem, and then one day I realized, like, oh, it's not real. I thought about it, and it does come back. I thought it would vanish forever. It comes back every now and then the moment I think about it, it leaves. So there's a chance it's a real, like, tooth issue. I think it's just psychosomatic, though. If you don't know, that's where you have a symptom for an illness that doesn't exist except outside your brain. I think that's what this is. But yeah, basically, one of the interesting things about this thing is that a lot of people said, or at least I saw one comment that said the opposite happened, and I find that to be really cool. I had a big, like, what-if session myself of, like, what? If you had the ability to take away pain selectively, would you do it? Because this is what it sounded like you had. And the answer is, like, probably not. But interestingly enough, so this is what repression is too. So I have repressed very few things, I hope at least. I'm pretty sure my childhood was mostly pretty good. It was pretty good on most fronts. There's a lot of, like, weird things that I remember every now and then where it's like, oh, that's not great. But it's like, in general, like, compared to a lot of people, I would say I had a good childhood. Not many things repressed in there. But in a way, repression, which if you don't know, is where you forget about something from when you're young. When your brain, it knows you can't deal with something, so it forgets about something. Instead of remembering the pain, the trauma, etc., you forget about it. But it means that you never really deal with the pain. When your car gets, I don't know, when you're an adult and you get, I don't know, a paper cut and it hurts for an hour, you're like, that sucks, and now I can't read books for the next hour, and blah 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 blah. And it's it sucks. It's not great. But you're over it within a relatively short period of time, right? That's my understanding of the situation. Oh, this is a problem. That's my understanding of the situation, at least. Oh, we gotta remove this. That's why that's broken. But yeah, when it comes to those sorts of things, when it comes to, like, any sort of pain, it's easy to get over it. However, if you have, like, a deep emotional pain issue, let's call it, but mental health or whatever, and your brain doesn't ever deal with it, then it's a real problem. So in a way, everyone's brain selectively does have a feature where if you're too young to deal with what pain is, it just gets rid of it. And that's something that we all inherently know isn't bad. One of the few, again, like, one of the few things I've spotted myself and realized, like, whoa, imagine if this was a much bigger issue. Like, you hear, the normal things people repress. I don't want to dive into them now, but imagine if you had that under your belt and you didn't really know what to do with it or how to do with it. And I think that's why therapy exists. One of the things, again, one of the few things that I vouch for, because I only really like to recommend things that, like, I have worked in my own brain. I think so much of the world is fake in lots of different senses, but so many products that are meant to help because you feel like they're helping. But I think one of the few things that is actually great is, like, talking with people, whether if they're normal people or whether they're trained professionals. Because if you feel like you've got a thing inside your head that you just can't find, you can't get out there, that's what I think therapy is, like, a cool way for that. So my recommendation today is, like, hey, do you sometimes feel like you selectively got rid of pain, real or emotional, whatever? Go speak to someone about that. And if it sounds real serious, go speak to someone who's trained to deal with that. Because that's all therapists are, really. It took me a long time to work that out because therapists want to sound like they're amazing people who can just dive in and fix everything in your brain. But I think the truth is they're just really good at conversation and, like a one-sided conversation. Because when you speak to strangers or other people you like, you kind of have to do this balance of, like, here's a thing about you, here's a thing about me, here's a thing that's interesting, a neutral event, like the weather, like, hey, you hear about the government shut down America? That's kind of crazy, right? But, like, like, here's a thing about you, here's a thing neutrally, etc. Whereas if you're talking to a therapist, they're just trained to talk all about you all the time. One of my favorite subjects to talk about is me. I don't do it too much, except in these videos, and even then loosely, because I try not to be a narcissist about it. But one of my favorite things to talk about is me, and I feel like you could hire a therapist just to be like, hey, I like to tell you about all the great things I've done in the past year, and you know, that's a valid reason to hire one too. Probably, at least. Actually, you know, I might speak to a therapist and ask if they'd be willing to talk, just to like get the wanting to talk about me out my system. Or maybe YouTube is my terrible therapist. YouTube is the worst, very. You know, like I say, like so. You know, here's that awful time that I, you know, had a girlfriend online. She was actually a guy, and then the YouTube comments are just there. You know, I'm like sharing this detailed, personal, intimate moment, and everyone's like, ah ha ha, you dated someone on the internet? What a nerd. And it's like, well, I think you missed the point of that story, because the internet also is not there to help you. The internet is there for their own benefit too. When you have no, like, let's call it like a reputation system, there's no reason to have a good reputation or to want a good reputation, and that's why the internet is awful. And that's why therapists are good, because their reputation, it earns them your money. And I don't know, maybe this was a useful conversation. Maybe you just learned that I like to talk about myself. Maybe you don't even watch these videos, you just listen to them. But either way, I appreciate you watching it. I hope you all enjoyed it, because I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.